Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be attempting to do some meal prepping. I have always loved leftovers, and usually when I'm making my food, I make enough that I will have leftovers for the next day or two for either lunch or dinner. But this time I want to try to prepare everything ahead of time for the week, and so it will make lunches and dinners really easy. I'm also gonna do an egg bake, which will also be my breakfast for the week, as well as I have some yogurt that I like to have with granola. So we are going to get everything all prepped first. So I got a red onion that I'm going to pickle. I also got some cabbage. I'm going to be making a coleslaw and also a deconstructed egg roll. So I got two bigger ones for that because I'm gonna be using them in two different things. I have some peppers that I'm gonna cut up. I have 2 carrots that I'm gonna shred, some green onions that I'm gonna cut up, as well as celery. And then I have some broccoli and some cauliflower that I'm gonna break up into smaller pieces. So I already washed all this, and now I'm going to start chopping everything up. Like the carrots I'm gonna chop, the peppers I'm gonna chop. And then for some of this, I want thinner and more precise, so I'm gonna use my mandolin. Whenever you're using one of these, you just need to be really careful with your fingers. And then I'm gonna need to get out my grater for shredding up some of this stuff too. So for this meal prep, I'm going to be making a deconstructed egg roll, a deconstructed pepper, like stuffed pepper kind of thing, and a sausage orzo recipe. And then I'm also gonna be doing that egg bake that I mentioned earlier. So overall, it's gonna have a lot of vegetables in each dish, and it will also be a mix of different things. I have sausage, I have ground beef, and I have some ground turkey. So I'm gonna be doing a mix of different proteins as well. And hopefully this will all go together. I also am using the deconstructed versions as opposed to the full thing because I thought it would be easier to store and use as leftovers this way. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, time to start chopping. Okay, there is the celery. Let me just put that in a bowl. So there's that. Do the green onions next. The prep is always what seems to take the longest. Once I get this all prepped, it should hopefully fly by with the rest of the stuff. Cutting off both ends. Toss those. And just cut these all up into little rounds. I got a bunch of these, so I'm actually probably gonna freeze some of them too. I love to have these on hand, just frozen, all pre-cut up, because whenever I'm using them to garnish anything else, it's easy to just take out as many as you need and then not have to worry about it. That's why I'm chopping them all up. But if you are doing this yourself, you don't have to chop them all up. You can just chop up as many as you would actually need. Whew. It's trying to make my eyes water. Usually green onions don't make my eyes water. Usually it's just regular onions that do that. It gets more difficult when you get to the end and they're different sizes. Just make sure you're careful with your fingers. Ooh. I'm not crying, you're crying. Not very good at aiming to get them in the bowl, am I? Cooking is always a little bit messy. Let's do the peppers. I got a mix of mostly red and orange. I got one yellow, so. Yeah, so I was gonna attempt to do this at the beginning of the week, but my car broke down. You can actually watch my other video about that. I ended up having to last minute just make whatever I had in the fridge because I was on my way to the grocery store to get all this, and my car decided not to work. We had to wait about 3 days without a car before I could get this. So luckily everything is fixed and it wasn't too crazy expensive to fix. That was what I was worried about. A mouse decided to nibble on some wires, so not great, but it is what it is. I'm going to try to get some sound machines to try to scare away any mice that could come so this doesn't happen again. If you have any ideas for what to do with that situation, add them to the comments below. I would love to know. Heard lights. I've heard even like putting Christmas lights. Got them de-seeded, and now we're gonna chop them. Okay, it is time to do the cauliflower. I'm just gonna break up the florets into smaller chunks. I already pre-washed everything, so everything is all clean. And then I'm gonna cut up half of these for the egg bake that I'm gonna be doing, and then the other half I'm gonna actually leave raw so I can have with like dips or with salads later on this week too. You just want them in about bite-sized pieces. And then I am gonna be cooking this down a little bit, so it should shrink a little bit, but I'll probably just do a few more pieces. That will be enough for both of those. So I'm gonna put some of the bigger pieces in a baggie and put them in the refrigerator, and then the rest I'll put in my bowl. There is that. I'm gonna need a bigger bowl. Get this one for the broccoli too. Okay, now it is time for the broccoli. And then for this one, I'm actually gonna use a paring knife too. I love how I have my kitchen island set up. I have the garbage right below me, so when I'm cooking, I can just pop things in. I have my knives all over here and my storage all over here, so it's all within arm's reach. If you wanna see how I designed this whole entire kitchen, I also have a video about that. If you wanna see that, check that out. And I like to get off some of this like harder outer shell. You don't have to do this, but I just prefer with a little bit less of this. I'm also listening to music. It's always better to listen to something and kind of dance around as you're doing it, but careful when you have a knife. Okay, and then for this little bit, I'm just gonna save for later. And I'm just gonna chop up all of this broccoli right here. So I'm gonna cut it up just like how I had it with the cauliflower. And I like to use the bigger pieces too, even though they're not always the greatest, but when you cut them up small, you can hardly tell. And it's best to use as much of your food as you can to have less food waste. Okay, there is all of my broccoli. Okay, it is time to start the mandolin chopping and the carrot grating. But before I do that, let's get this a little bit cleaned up. Okay, I am all set to start with the cabbage. I'm gonna start with half of the cabbage first, so I broke them up into smaller chunks so that they fit on my mandolin. You wanna be really careful when you're using a mandolin so you're not getting any of your fingers, so be very careful as you're doing this. And it's gonna look something like this. Once I get down to it really close, I'll take my knife and chop up the rest of it. This just gets the majority of it all ready to go. Okay, and since this is getting really full, I'm gonna put it into a bowl to get some of it out of the way. And then I'm actually just mix my cabbage, my purple cabbage all together, since they'll be going into both the same. Okay, and then once that is done, you can kind of mix it up a little bit so that they're all equally combined. Should have got a bigger bowl. Oops, I'm gonna clean this up and get ready for the onion. Okay, it is time for the red onion. You see these perfect little ringlets. There we go. Got a couple of bigger chunks that I'm gonna take out here, but Okay, so for this one, I'm actually gonna be putting most of it in a jar to pickle it. And then for some of it, I'm gonna be putting in other things that I'm making today. I always save jars that I get from the grocery store. So I forget what this was, but anytime I get a glass jar, I always save it for things like this. It saves money and keeps things out of the dumpster. So we're just gonna put as many of these in here as we can get. You can also cut these in half if you want. I usually cut them in half, but I want to try to do them in ringlets and see how those look when I pickle them. It's always nice to have these on hand. They store up to 3 weeks, and it just adds a little bit of fun to the dish you're making because it is just so pretty and it also tastes good. Just want to pack them in. Got it fairly full. I'm just gonna set this aside for now. I'll be making the mixture soon to go on it. Okay, and the last thing I'm gonna do are grate up some carrots. Chop off the ends. And get to grating. This grater I have has a little thing that collects it in the bottom too. Though some always fly out the sides. Takes a lot of muscles to grate a bunch of carrots. Jeez. And once I get down to the bottom, I always just eat the last little bit instead of trying to chop off my fingers. My prep work is done for the most part, so now it is time to start cooking. We are gonna start by making my pickle mixture for my red onions. So first you wanna start out with 1.5 cups of water. And then I forgot to get that out. I'm actually using apple cider vinegar for this recipe. Most of the times you will just use regular vinegar, but I don't have that right now. You want about 1/2 cup of this. So I'm gonna get down low so I can make sure I'm getting the right amount. Okay. And then you're gonna want some honey. You're wanting about 2 tablespoons of honey. I don't have that much left, so I'm just gonna use the rest of this. Should be around 2 tablespoons. And then last but not least, you're gonna want about a teaspoon of salt. And you're gonna wanna mix that together, and then we're gonna simmer it on the stovetop. Just combine all the ingredients. Mainly doing this so the honey doesn't stick onto the bottom of the Pyrex. And then we're gonna bring it over here. Turn on the stove. And then just let that go until it starts to simmer. Okay, while I'm waiting for my pickle mixture to get all ready and simmering, I'm going to get started on the egg bake. So the first thing I need to do is start cooking some of this cauliflower and broccoli on the stove. My nice pan here. Grab some olive oil, put a little bit in there. Enough to cook our broccoli and cauliflower. Turn this on to medium. Now we'll see if we pick it up. And then we're gonna add our broccoli and our cauliflower. And then we're just gonna mix that up until it starts to soften and wilt down a little bit. Make sure we're also stirring our mixture for our pickles. Make sure everything is all incorporated together. Okay, and then while that is getting started, I'm going to crack 8 eggs into my bowl. Then you're just gonna wanna whisk that up so they're all scrambled together. Need a little more olive oil. I'm just gonna actually leave this over here now. Okay, this is getting close to simmering. Okay, and then I'm gonna add my seasonings. I'm gonna add some red pepper flakes just to give it a little bit of heat. I like spicy stuff. If you don't like spicy stuff, just either add a little or just skip it completely. Then garlic powder. I'm not measuring anything, I'm just kind of measuring with my heart. Some onion powder and some Italian seasoning. And then you're gonna also want some salt and pepper. I wanna whisk that together. Okay, and now that that's a little further along, I'm gonna add a little bit of my peppers to it. Oh, and you're gonna wanna preheat your oven to 400. Oh, and I forgot about the onions. Put my eggs away and get out some cheese and shred some cheese. Be needing this later, but for now we'll just shred that much. Okay, and then my pickling juice is ready to go. So I'm gonna open this up, bring this over here and carefully pour this into here. This actually has a nice little spigot, so pour this until it goes to the top. There we go. Have a little bit of extra. You want to make sure it's covering the top, and then I'm just gonna push this over here for now. You're gonna want to let this sit for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then I'll show you how it's changed in that meantime. Okay, now this is getting pretty close to being done. And then once the vegetables are done cooking, we're gonna be putting that in here. And then we're gonna be pouring the egg mixture on top of that, and then sprinkling it with some cheese. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to my veggie mixture too. Okay, this is looking good. I'm gonna turn off the oven. Get all the goodies in there. Okay, I'm just gonna spread this out evenly on the bottom of this pan. This has a lot of steam. Then we're gonna take our egg mixture and pour that evenly over top. Jiggle it around to make sure it's getting into all the little pockets. Awesome. And then I found some frozen bacon bits that I'm gonna be sprinkling on top just to add a little bit of extra flavor. Completely up to you. You wanna add this or not. I just happen to have it in the refrigerator. Or if you wanna get your own and make them fresh, do that too. I like to have some frozen ones in the refrigerator just so it's always ready to go and you don't have to always heat it up and make a mess out of the stove. That's looking good. And then we're gonna sprinkle our cheese on top of that. Make sure it's evenly spread out. Awesome. Got all this ready? Now I'm just waiting for the oven to finish heating up. It needs about 5 more degrees and then we can throw that in there. As that baking, I am going to there we go. I am gonna get everything prepared for the next recipe and clean up my mess that I've made so far. This needs about 20 minutes. Just took it out of the oven and it is sizzling. Smells great. So I'm gonna let this cool off for a little bit before cutting it and giving it a try. Okay, while the egg bake is still cooling off, I'm gonna get started on my next one, which is the deconstructed egg roll. So I got my ground turkey in here already, and I'm gonna start browning that. Wanna cook that down until it is all cooked through. Just keep stirring until it gets there and breaking it apart. Oh, and look how much this has changed colors already. It is becoming a beautiful pink color. I'm gonna leave it for a little bit longer. It's still fairly warm and let it see how pink it will actually get. Okay, the turkey is ready to go. So right now I'm gonna add some of my seasonings and other things. So I have some garlic powder, salt, pepper, and some red pepper flakes. Depending on how spicy you want it, either add more or less of these. I do like things to have a little bit of a kick, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. And now you're gonna wanna get some ginger. Now what I do for ginger is I buy it in a tube and then freeze a bunch of it. I don't go through a lot of ginger and I always have it on hand, but then it doesn't go bad and it's not wasteful. I just put it on a piece of wax paper and freeze it into about teaspoon-sized little blobs. And so I can just throw them in to any dish I have, and I really like this. They also sell some pre-made, already frozen and stuff. I've gotten those too. They didn't have them there the last time I was there, so that's why I have it this way. But I love frozen ginger because then you always have it on hand and it never goes bad. I shouldn't say never, but for a long time it doesn't go bad. Okay, and then I'm gonna give that a stir. Then I'm gonna add some soy sauce. You can always add more too once done cooking. Okay, and then I'm gonna add my cabbage. Go, and then we're gonna stir that in carefully, so not doing it everywhere. Kind of using a folding motion. Okay, and then to really wilt down the cabbage, I'm gonna add a little bit of water and steam it for a couple minutes, and I will check back in with you. I did add a little bit of carrot, and it is looking good, so let's give it a little bit of a try. I'm not gonna take too much because I'm gonna try all the different things today. I'm gonna have a mix of a dinner very early. And then I'm going to take some of the green onion, sprinkle that on top. And then, actually, these are coming along great. Try a little bit of this too, maybe. Yeah, look at this color. Very pretty. And I'm hoping it will get even more vivid as time goes on. So I have to bite. Yeah, this is good. I like it. It has a nice flavor. The saltiness from the soy sauce and a little bit of salt I put in it. And then the cabbage really went down and it's a really good texture. And the seasonings on it all come together great. I also really like the fresh onion on top. The pepper onions also taste very good. And I would say that this is a success. I'm going to make sure these all get into their own individual containers. And then this meal is done and I can move on to the next one. Okay, I am going to cut up the egg bake and then give this a little bit of a taste test too. I'm gonna cut this up into 8 pieces, I think, since there's 8 eggs in it. 4 this way. I think I might freeze some of these and then also have some in the refrigerator for the week too. This is looking delicious. Take this piece out. This is looking great. Give it a try. This is good. The egg has a great texture. Then also the cauliflower and the broccoli in this have a great texture too. They're not too soft, they're not too hard, they're just perfect. The bacon adds a nice little bit of saltiness to it and the cheese on top is delicious. Hard to go wrong with cheese. Okay, it is time to start the deconstructed peppers. So I have some ground beef in here that I'm gonna start to brown. Break it up and wait until it starts to brown. And then after that starts to brown, I'm gonna add in the onions and the peppers and some garlic and get that all going. Stirring it and keeping an eye on it until it's ready. Okay, this is looking good. So I'm gonna add the peppers and the onions first, and then in a little bit I'll add the garlic as well. Save the rest for the coleslaw that I'm gonna be making soon. Okay, and keep going with that until that has softened up. That is looking great. So now it is time to add the rest of the stuff. I'm gonna add 2 cups chicken broth, 1 can of diced tomatoes, then some Italian seasoning, garlic powder, salt, some red pepper flakes, and then a little bit of tomato paste. I don't ever use the full can, so whatever I have leftovers, I always take them and freeze some so that they're just ready to go, kind of like I do with my ginger. Wait for that to melt some. Okay, and then I'm gonna add my rinsed rice, mix that in, then put the lid on and let it simmer. It needs about 20 minutes or so. We'll keep an eye on it. We don't want to get it too dry in there, so if I need to add water later on, I can. In the meantime, let's start with the coleslaw. I need the cabbage. I have a mix of both purple and regular cabbage. I'm gonna add some peppers and carrots that have been shredded, and then some celery, and a little bit of the green onions. And then we're gonna mix that up. Okay, it is time to start on the dressing for the coleslaw. So this is not a creamy one, this is more of a vinegary one. So first I need some ginger. Then you need some garlic. Oil, I am using avocado oil, 3 tablespoons. And I also need 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. You need a little bit of sesame seed oil. I don't want to use too much of this, but I need 6 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Then I need some syrup for sweetness. I usually use honey, but I used the rest of my honey today, so. And then you need about 3 tablespoons of peanut butter as well. Kind of eyeball this one. Okay, I think that's good. I think it's a little more than 3, but I do like peanut butter. I'm okay with that. And you want to mix this all together. We're gonna add this onto it. We're gonna mix that all together. Here is the coleslaw up close. It is time to give the coleslaw a try. Yeah, this is good. I usually always go for the creamy coleslaw and not a vinegary one, but I really like this with the peanut butter in it too. It kind of dilutes some of the harshness of the vinegar, but it's still zingy. And all of the textures from the different veggies is delicious. I really like this. This will be a great side to have with all of my meals. Besides probably the deconstructed egg roll, because that already has cabbage, but yep, I'm happy with this one. Okay, here's what the deconstructed stuffed peppers look like. Add some cheese to it and then we can give it a taste test. Let's give this a try. Looks so cheesy on the inside. This is hot. Yeah, this is good. It's very flavorful. I like all the peppers in it. It does taste like a stuffed pepper, just obviously not the same shape, and there's a little bit less pepper, I would say, in each bite than a stuffed pepper would have. But still, I really like it. It has a lot of flavor. I like all of the different textures in it too. The rice cooked perfectly, so that's always great. And I would say that this is a success. If anything, I would just add a little more cheese on my own individual one. But other than that, okay, we are finally on the last recipe that I'm gonna be making today. It has been a long day so far. Finally on the last one. For this last one, I'm gonna be making this sausage orzo pasta. I cut up a bunch of andouille sausage. They are into coin-size pieces, and I'm gonna fry these up first until those are thoroughly cooked through. Okay, I'm gonna add the garlic. Okay, and then I'm gonna add all of my seasoning. So I'm gonna do some onion powder, some red pepper flakes, garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, salt, some pepper, and then since I'm using andouille sausage for this, I'm gonna add some Cajun seasoning as well. I love Cajun seasoning. I use this a lot as just like an all-purpose seasoning too. Such good flavor, and it gives things a little bit of a kick. There we go. And then I'm gonna add some of the chicken broth. And then I have a cup of orzo. We're gonna mix that all together. The lid on. It'll need probably about 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that, and then I will see you once it is all cooked. Okay, this is looking good. I had to add more water and make it go for quite a bit longer because the pasta was still pretty hard, but now it's looking good. I'm going to add some cheese to this and let that melt in. We're gonna mix that all in. This is kind of like a sausage, macaroni and cheese kind of thing. And it should be a little bit spicy, which I'm looking forward to because I do like things that have a little bit of a kick. The cheese should turn that down a little bit though, since it's dairy. And then for my veggie, I'm going to add some spinach and wilt it down. I'm gonna put the lid on just to let that wilt down a little bit more, and then it should be ready. Okay, this is what it's looking like. Looks delicious. It is time to taste the orzo sausage, spinach, cheesy pasta. I don't know what I'm gonna call this. And it has all that Cajun seasoning and then some of that andouille sausage, so it should have a little bit of a kick to it. Ooh, it is hot. Make sure I get a little bit of everything in the bite. Don't wanna burn my tongue, that would be a bad way to end the video. Yeah, this is really good. It has a ton of flavor. All those seasonings in it went together beautifully. It does have a slight kick, so if you don't like spicy stuff, this may not be for you, but it is very good, and I will be happy to eat this the rest of the week as well, especially once it cools down a little bit. It is very hot, but I am very happy with all this. In a minute, I'm gonna get everything out to show you all of what I did and kind of my final thoughts on everything. All done. I got my coleslaw, my deconstructed stuffed peppers, my deconstructed egg roll, sausage orzo spinach cheesy dish, my breakfast egg bake, and this gorgeous pickled red onion that's turning into such a pretty color. I love it. Ta-da! Okay, today has been a day. I got all my ingredients done. I got it prepped. I would say the prep took the longest just per thing, but it made things a lot faster in the long run that I did everything all at once at the beginning, so then I could just use bits and pieces throughout my meals because each of them had pretty much a little bit of most of the ingredients. So that was nice to have them all pre-cut, and so I could just throw them in when I needed to instead of having to recut them multiple times. I would say I do like the idea of meal prep, especially if you're gonna be having a really busy week and you know you're not gonna have time to cook when you get home. Plus, it has a bunch of meals that are healthier and you know that they're there, so you're probably gonna be less likely to go out to eat and you'll save money that way. So I do really see the benefit in this. I don't know if I would necessarily do this every week by any means. I think that this is more of a take things as it goes. If you know you're having a bigger weekend before, you can get a bunch of stuff just pre-made, and I could see that being a really big benefit. I've also seen things where people have been prepping the ingredients and not so much making full meals out of it. So I would be interested in trying that to see if that's any better. I'm very happy with how this went. I like all the things that I made, so that's always good. And I will be interested to see how it goes through the rest of the week, just pulling things out and heating them up and seeing how that goes and how much time it actually saved me me in the long run, because this took me about, oh gosh, it's like close to 5 hours to do all this. So that's quite a bit of time. Although this is my first time doing it too, I'm assuming as you do it more often, you get faster at it. That was just my experience with it. And I was just doing one thing at a time. I could see people doing multiple things at a time and it going a lot quicker too. Overall, I'm quite happy with how this experiment went, and I will give it another shot and see how that goes. I also really want to try that prepping the ingredients, because I do not like prepping ingredients. That is by far what takes the longest amount of time, especially when you're cutting like onions and peppers and all that stuff. If you prep that at the beginning of the week and just are cooking it last minute and just throwing that stuff in, I could see that being really helpful. So I'm wondering if I would like that maybe better than this kind of meal prep. So I think I'm gonna give that a go too. I feel like I'm just starting to repeat myself. It's been a long day, but again, I am very happy with this, how this went. So if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video.